This is Jeff Davis, and I work for IntelliView, and I'm going to describe the process in which we were able to define and then build franchise territories for GHA. Our company is primarily focused on assisting franchisors in analyzing and then developing franchise territories based on geographic information system mapping software and current demographic data. What we did was take the information that we had for GHA in Australia, their existing territory markets, and then break those down into population segments in which we could analyze. And then we recreated all of their existing territories throughout all Australia, and then we're able to take that general information and then use that as a benchmark for when we started analyzing the United States. When we analyzed the United States, we started from a high level, working our way from the state. Then we broke the states down into their own kind of metro markets, and then under the metro markets, we broke that down into separate zip codes so that we could build individual territories. The data that we used consisted of a series of demographic variables from family households to percent change in households by percentage and by total number to identify those growth areas, new growth areas. We identified areas that were particularly owner-occupied housing, not rental. We looked at median home values, and we also looked at just total population. We were also able to gather some third-party data regarding green building. So we had counts of certified green home builders, green family housing count. We had the count of accredited contractors for green development, and then we had a value for total green revenue spent. So we had that information at the state level, so that allowed us to then score each one of these variables for each state, and then rank each of those states from top to bottom based on each variable. And then we did a total sum ranking of all 10 variables so that we could score all those against all states to come up with a priority list. And so we were able to identify tiers for the United States from top 1 to the lower 5 based on those key demographic variables. That was to allow us then to concentrate on the market so that we could understand where to start development first. That was presented a map such as this so we could kind of see that kind of arches from the East Coast along the south up to the West Coast. Now, once we had that, then we took the individual key state markets, and then we broke everything down into what we called CBSAs, core-based statistical areas, that identified individual markets within those states. For example, Riverside and Portland and Denver. So we broke it down into the cities. Used the same demographic and third-party data we had before, ranked each of those variables, and then were able to score those out so we could then break the 380 different markets in the United States into their 5 tiers. So we went from state down to CBSA. And that helped us identify what markets within the key states that we want to target. Once those were identified, then we took that same data and put it into the mapping component. Then those same demographics that we were looking at, we were creating at the zip code level. These blue lines represent zip code boundaries. Then within each zip code, we're able to capture those key demographics that we're looking for, such as the home values, total homes, population change, median value, all the kind of key factors. And we use the zip codes as territory boundaries to group together and define a unique territory area. We have a tool that allows us to pick a grouping of zip codes, and while doing that, it sums and averages the key demographic variables that we're looking for. So we had specific benchmarks that a territory had to be between 100 and 150,000 total population, which translates into 50 to 60,000 households. And then we were looking for specific home values. So as we built those, we checked to make sure it kind of met all the specific criteria that we were looking for. And then once defined, we could take those selection of zip codes and put those into a grouping. We did that for the key markets. An example here, we also used, turn the zips off. We also used some of the key data that we had captured to help us identify these specific areas. This one shows household growth. So we want to make sure we found areas that where homes were being built and newly developed. And so we ran a thematic map of 1 mile grids to identify those kind of growth areas. And then around those growth areas, we were able to capture the zip codes in those areas to define and build equitable territory boundaries for that. And then we created those territories in which we can then have provided to prospects as a viable, equitable territory for the market. And that pretty much defines the process. The demographic variables that we've used will define us across the United States as we build out markets, and we use those to help us identify and target those key areas. The demographic variables that we use are updated on a quarterly basis. So the current data we have is third quarter of 2018. So the information is very, very accurate and allows us then to build out very good and strong equitable territories for the franchisee prospects. Thank you.